Antonio de Torres arrived at Cadiz, Spain on March 7th, 1494. He returned with 30,000 ducats worth of gold, which in today's money is about $7,700,000. He also returned with 26 indigenous people, but nobody cared about them. The gold was the main protagonist. Colon also sent a very detailed letter with Antonio de Torres asking for more supplies so that they could finally form this permanent settlement. It was during this exchange that the king and queen let Colon know that they were not interested in receiving more indigenous people. They just wanted the gold. They wanted the indigenous people to be converted to Catholicism while in their homeland. Please don't bring any more of them. Colon also complained in his letter that the gentlemen that were being sent over were worthless. They didn't work. And this was what caused the problem of labor. The Spanish who were being brought over, they came from all walks of life. Some were criminals, some were rich, some were middle class, etc. But they felt that they didn't need to work. They didn't need to do anything in order to achieve the riches that were promised to them. So the indigenous slave labor became something invaluable. It was needed in order to get more gold. Back on the island, Colon was still very ill during this time, so he assigned his brother, Don Diego Colon, to basically supervise and oversee the construction of La Isabela. He had sent out Alonso de Ojeda and 15 men to look for the gold mines of El Cibao. They came back a few days later saying, "We found them. Let's go." So on March 12th, 1494, Columbus himself led a group of every able-bodied man he had in the fortress out into the mines of El Cibao. Once on the hilltop where he was close enough to the gold mines, Colon decided, you know what, we need another fortress in order to keep the men safe as they mined for gold. This fortress was called San Tomás. He had already begun a system where if the indigenous people brought him gold or food or supplies, he would give them like little trinkets, like little bells, little glass beads, etc. So when he established the fort of San Tomás, he basically spread this system out. And this was the start of the tribute system of the West Indies. On April 1st, Colon returned to La Isabela to find that the men he left there had rebelled. Bernal Diaz de Pisa was their leader, and Colon proceeded to immediately arrest him. He then wrote several letters to King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella, explaining why he had to punish several of the settlers that had rebelled against him. By this time, Colon was dealing with several different groups of people. He had left people in La Isabela to continue constructing. He had also left people in La Fortaleza de San Tomás in El Cibao to continue looking for gold. There, they had been attacked by indigenous people who were not allied with GUACANAGARI. He was also dealing with several mutineers or rebels of his own crewmen. And he also was awaiting back the return of the group that had left for Spain with Antonio de Torres. It is believed that during this time, for the most part, Colon and his men were still sleeping at night on the ships, fearing that the Tainos would unalive them. Without the help of GUACANAGARI, everybody was starving. Because of the heat, the humidity, they didn't know how to harvest any food, anything that would sustain them in the long run. Colon tried to establish a wheat grinding mill where they would grind wheat in order to get flour to produce bread. But the bread would become moldy, and then they would all fall ill. The constant state of starvation produced many illnesses and also produced a very violent reaction from Colon himself. He was always threatening violence against the settlers. He used this tactic to continue to retain control over the settlement, over La Isabela, but it was failing fast. When he felt that the end was probably very, very near, all of a sudden, a messenger from La Fortaleza de San Tomás appeared. He came running, he was frantic, bearing horrible news. He said that the indigenous people that lived around La Fortaleza de San Tomás, they were all abandoning the Yucayeques. They were all leaving. And the reason was that Caunabo, Guacanagari's enemy, had sent messengers saying that he was going to unalive all the Christians in the area. Colon reacted quickly. He gathered about 70 men, and he also put Alonso de Ojeda as a commander-in-chief. However, soon the power that this young man was given just went into his head and created a very dangerous situation. It became clear that Ojeda was hot-headed, and he was quick to draw first blood. They were able to go to La Fortaleza de San Tomás and calm the situation, but it wasn't over. It was just starting. On April 9th, 1494, Alonso de Ojeda left La Isabela with 400 men.